I know we've talked about, off camera. Unfortunately, that things kick off at 7 a.m. And as you know, as someone who works the late shift, I probably will not be up and at them at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'll be cheering them on from afar. But I thought that there was some really interesting stats, actually, though, that come with, like, marathon running. And I just wanted to tell you some of them, if you're okay with that.
Okay. Yeah, let's
because
learn more
I thought
about
this
the
is really cool. All right. So the optimal temperature for males running, this is in Fahrenheit, 39 degrees for an elite male athlete. And for women is 50 degrees. So first, I want a deeper dive on this study that I got this from, because I'm like, that is an 11-degree difference. But if you're recreational, both men and women, it's 43 to 44. So I'm interested in like what the elite athlete difference is there. I told Nick Sturdivant, who's one of our anchors, who is actually running the half tomorrow, that, and he's so sensitive to the cold. And he was like, absolutely not. I disagree. So I want to know where these stats came from. But this was a study that was in the National Library of Medicine, so in PubMed, so it's legit. Another thing they talked about, of course, was like headwind versus tailwind, if you're trying to beat your numbers.
Sure.
But because a lot of those numbers were cooler than probably most people would expect, the study was kind of looking at the fact that with warming temperatures, some of these ideal conditions long term, obviously not in the next 5 years, but could actually be less likely, because it's not just us, who have marathons. There's marathons all around the world. So it's not just, Boston, which I feel like it's a big one in the United States, but it's Tokyo, it's London. So.
Well, I've always thought it's interesting to bring up those cooler numbers, because that's actually cooler than I was expecting as well. But it's interesting that you mention it. The New York City Marathon, just a couple of weeks ago, they have it this time of year. The Boston Marathon, I think that's in like late March, early April. It's always like right around Red Sox opening day for baseball. So those are both really cool times of year, and not always the best kind of weather up there. But you don't want to have it in the summertime. It's just not safe to run 20 miles when it's 80 degrees outside, so that makes sense.
What I did think was interesting, too, is that if they found that temperature didn't have as much of an impact, or had a bigger impact than humidity, which I thought was interesting, because I feel like oftentimes we think the humidity is so sticky and like you might feel like you're crawling through it. But yeah, it was more of a temperature impact than it was a humidity impact. So
I don't know if they did that study down here then.
I don't think that they did. I mean, I guess it was all over the world, so you have to think it's an average. But I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
So with it being the Charlotte Marathon tomorrow,
Very
I just wanted
much.
to talk about some stats. You doing anything fun this
Good
weekend?
luck, runners. I might run 1 mile, maybe not 26, but otherwise spending time outside. It's going to be beautiful.
Get it done. All right, well, I'll see you next week. Before we go, I just want to give another tease to you and Brad, because on Tuesday, you guys have your big winter weather forecast that you're going to be talking about on Live Weather Impact, so make sure you don't forget about that.
Yeah, snow.
Okay, have a good weekend, Tim.
All right, see you guys.
Welcome in here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Happy Friday evening. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us. So we want to get to it, right? So as we've been reporting, there's been a lot of talk on Border Patrol here in the Charlotte area. I want to read what we have on our website before I get to a press conference from earlier. So headline from our website, WCNC.com, Mecklenburg leaders, residents brace for Border Patrol, say federal silence fuels concern. So here's what we have. Democratic leaders across Mecklenburg County say they still have no real answers from the federal government about the U.S. Border Patrol deployment to Charlotte. So earlier today, we heard from a group of local officials. We heard from activists. We heard from community members getting their reaction to the possibility of Border Patrol coming as early as Saturday at the earliest. And could come and could arrive next week. Well, let's listen in to what they had to say earlier in case you missed it.
Good morning. We're about to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today. I am North Carolina House Representative Representative Aisha Dew. I just forgot my name. But thank you so much for joining us. We're all gathered here from many branches of government, from obviously our state legislature, our school board, our county commission, our city council members, because we do not want ICE here. We do not need to have Border Patrol. As I've already said, I'm not quite sure what border we're patrolling here. Are we patrolling Rock Hill or South Carolina? We don't have borders here in North Carolina that need to be protected. We don't need to be protected from Virginia, Tennessee, nor South Carolina. And I'm sorry, but people are not joining us in Wilmington. So there's absolutely no reason for us to have ICE, to have Border Patrol here. This is a safe city. Our crime rates have gone down since the previous year. This is just another something out of the playbook. When you look at Washington, D.C., the National Guard was picking up litter. So if they want people here to help us pick up litter, I think we've got that covered as well. We don't need people here to help us clean up our city. We can take care of our city. We can take care of our own. In 2016, when there were protests, we had a Democratic governor, imagine that, and a Democratic mayor, and when they thought that things were too much, they actually called in the National Guard. No one here is called in the National Guard. No one here is called in Border Patrol. We know how to take care of our city. We know how to protect our city, and we simply do not need them here. So next up, we will hear from Representative Jordan Lopez.
Well, thank you, everybody. Good morning. In the interest of brevity, I will try to keep my remarks short. First, thank each and every one of you for being here this morning. Thank you to my colleagues across our local government for being here this morning. For my constituents, for all of our constituents, I just want to say that we see you, we are standing with you, we are here for you. Over the past several days, I've had conversations with community members, with leaders, with neighbors, and each time we talk about this expected enforcement operation from the federal government. And I'm speaking to people across all races, across all backgrounds, across legal statuses, and the common denominator is fear and concern. We've seen what has taken place in other cities across this country when the federal government gets involved. We have seen the undisciplined agents pointing weapons at unarmed civilians, the indiscriminate rounding up of civilians who are sleeping in their homes in the middle of their night in Chicago. We have seen the worst of law enforcement. And as a lawmaker myself, I know laws must be enforced, but the how matters. And whenever you decide that creating the perception of peace through fear tactics, through militarized agents walking down the street, that doesn't feel like a safe or a welcoming community to me. That feels like a prison. And that is not what the people of House District 112 are asking for. That is not what the people of the city of Charlotte are asking for, or the people across Mecklenburg County. We do not want that here. So I stand with our local law enforcement leaders, our executive leaders like Mayor Lyles, who have asked for greater communication from the federal government, because the interest of all of us, I believe, is the safety of our constituents, is the safety of our city, and we want to make sure that everybody knows we are standing with them, and we also want safe cities, but we want to make sure we do it in the right way. So thank each and every one of you all for being here again, and I believe I will be passing this off next to back to Representative Dew. Appreciate you all.
Thank you. We have so many people here to speak. I'm actually going to go to one of our community members who actually came up from Charleston without having to go through Border Patrol, who is representing SEIU.
Good morning, my brothers and sisters. It's a good morning to be here on this chilly morning, but it's an exciting morning to be here. Travel from Charleston. My name is Nisi Brown. I am the union representative for the North Carolina area. I represent the workers here in North Carolina, and I came to stand in solidarity with our politicians, our community leaders, our working families, our children, the entire Charlotte community. I actually want to say that I'm a union leader that believe in making it clear that our priority is to protect our workers, no matter who they are, no matter the color of their skin. It doesn't matter where they came from. Our priority is to protect our workers. Deploying U.S. Custom and Border Control here in Charlotte does not make sense. I'm with you, sister. In our city is an attack on our community, our workers, and our First Amendment. The deployment is a pattern from the administration that target Democratic-led city, especially those led by black leaders who choose to welcome all of God's children. I don't know about you, but Charlotte is a Bible city, and we believe that we love everybody. All of us are God's children. So no workers should feel fair being in the city of Charlotte, being detained, assaulted, taken by federal agents simply for showing up for work. Amen. We don't need immigration and custom enforcement coming into Charlotte, disrupting our city, creating fear in our city and workplace, trying to divide our community and to make Charlotte a less safe place. What Charlotte needs, we need work, we need affordable housing, affordable health care, wages that we can live off, being able to go to the grocery store and not spend our entire check. That's what we need in Charlotte. Our community thrives on standing and sharing our values of freedom, opportunity, and dignity for everyone. But one thing I read, because I'm a Bible girl, I read in Psalms 29:2, and it says that whenever there is a good leader, the people rejoice. But whenever there's a wicked leader, the people groan. And I don't know about you, but we're at that point that we're groaning now because who is in leadership? There has to be something done. So immigrant workers enrich our community, help drive our nation forward. They support our family, contribute to everyday work in the city, and deserve to be safe in their workplace and their home. Let me be clear. We will not be divided by immigration status, by fear. We're going to stand together with our neighbors, with our sisters, and our brothers, because I do believe that when we fight together, when we stand together, we will win this fight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will have Senator Caleb Tedros.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Caleb Tedros. I represent some of you all in the State Senate. We're in my district right now. The past week have shown us, what a way to govern, where we have had community members, elected officials, even reporters on these fact-finding missions just to find out whether a federal force is coming into the city of Charlotte. The number one word you're all going to hear in the next few months when it's time to campaign is going to be transparency. What part of this governing has been transparent? What part of this entire process has been fully shown so that community members know what's going on? And I understand what these community members are going through. Myself, I'm from an immigrant family. My family is originally from East Africa. So outside of dealing with the constant plight in this country of an affordability crisis, outside of the anxiety of not having somewhere where you can afford to live, you now have to have an anxiety about a federal force coming into Charlotte and you not knowing what they're going to do, you not knowing what's going to take place. The only thing you have to go off of is Twitter announcements and rumors about what's going to happen in Charlotte. That is not an effective way to govern. It doesn't take a president to know that. Excuse me. And we've seen that here even at the local level. A North Carolina State Senate and House of Representatives where we still don't have a budget. The only state in the United States of America with no budget. And of course, to take attention away from this, you have authoritarian, you have sort of these political fiascos to take attention away from that. The fact that we don't have a budget, the fact that people's health care is doubling and tripling. So what do? You have fiascos like this. You have political theater, and you have constant and new anxiety you're introducing to the public. Folks in Charlotte are not going to be made safe by this. What if you care about actual safety, you care about fully funding our police officers, you care about additional money spent on mental health resources, you care about additional resources for our public safety programs. That's how you push back against public safety. That's how you help folks. You pass a budget, you help folks with health care. You don't rely on sort of fear tactics and lack of information to hit folks at the local level. And that's what you see folks are fighting against. It's the lack of transparency, the lack of everything you all are going to hear on the campaign trail in the next few months when these people come out and talk about the great job or their lack of. And so I want to thank you all. I want to thank the speakers here and community members. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to come out here and speak your truth. And that's something that the city of Charlotte and the state of North Carolina is going to continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will have Cameron Pruitt, who is with us from the Freedom Center for Social Justice.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. You know, we are 14 days into the month of November, 2 weeks from Thanksgiving, and folks still don't have their SNAP benefits. We are sitting in a city where people are planning and trying to gather together to put a turkey on the table, to bring their family members, asking them to come home and travel and be with them. But now this weekend we have to worry if families are going to be separated and torn apart. And so as a Christian, I pray that everyone looks into their hearts and asks, what would you do if this was your family? What steps would you take? What would you donate? What would you volunteer? How loud would you yell in the streets? And so I'm asking you to do that, to stand with the Carolina Migrant Network, to shop at immigrant-owned businesses. Charlotte East has a full list. And to peacefully and prayerfully and with moral clarity take action in this moment. You have heard from speakers, this will not make our people safe. This is not a targeted action. We have seen Border Patrol use helicopters on civilian buildings and not apologize. This is not about legal status. This is about the color of someone's skin, about where they come from, and about causing fear and division. So I ask everyone, take action, stand together, take action, stand together, pray, and we will get through this. Thank you.
Next, we will have Jonelle Coswell, who was a part of the chair for the International Cabinet, also worked with International House, and is also an immigrant herself.
Thank you, Representative Dew. I don't know, maybe this isn't working. Hello, everybody, and good morning. This is a very, very dire time that we're gathering here today. I'm a proud immigrant, I'm a proud Jamaican American, and I have been a part of this community for over a decade. The immigrant community in Charlotte is vibrant, productive, and contributes over $1 billion of spending revenue each year to this community. Immigrants not only bring their culture and diversity, but we help to make this community prosperous and a healthy economic ecosystem. I have recently been grieving the loss of a very, very dear friend. And I can only imagine that this kind of grief.
All right, so that is press conference from earlier that we heard from Mecklenburg County officials, activists, other groups speaking out about the potential Border Patrol presence that we are expecting here in Charlotte at the earliest Saturday. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, so we want to get back now to a press conference held by local officials, activists this morning to address reports of Border Patrol launching operations possibly as soon as Saturday here in the Charlotte area. Let's take you back now to that press conference.
To find family members gone missing. It is one thing if you are going after criminals. It is one thing if you're going after people who have broken the law. To take someone with no due process. This is not democratic, this is not American, and this is not Charlotte, and this is not this country. Now, our community is strong, and it is made stronger by the presence of immigrants and the international community. Amen. We need to stand together and we need to protect our community members because they do not come here to rob, do not come here to steal. They come here for a better life and to make this community better by working hard and participating and volunteering just like myself. We need to stand together and we need to protect our community members, and we have to say no. This cannot happen, and we need to defend our democracy and make sure that there is due process. Thank you so much.
Hello, hello, hello. All right, well, we won't worry about it. I think we're all loud. All right, so next we have Council Member-elect J.D. Lasuaro Arias. And I probably butchered it, I'm very sorry.
Good morning. My colleagues will have to forgive me because I can talk a lot. And I have to say things in English and in Spanish because this is personal. Amen. I know what fear feels like. I know what it feels like to have it in your bones. The kind that makes you hold your breath when somebody knocks the door, and the kind that parents feel when they just hope to come back home to their children at night. That fear is not distant to me. It's a part of who I am. I grew up undocumented in Charlotte, in the neighborhoods that so many immigrant families call home. And today I stand before you as not only the first Latino, but the first formally undocumented member of the City Council. Yesterday, the Sheriff's Office confirmed that CBP will be in our city. However, no transparency, no accountability, no explanation, not to my colleagues behind me, not to the public, not to the families who deserve to know what's happening in their own city. Let me say this clearly. This is not about public safety. It is not about finding criminals. It is about fear, it is about quotas, and it's about control. When federal agents enter our communities without warning, without cause, and without humanity, they are not keeping us safe. They are terrorizing our neighborhoods, and we do not welcome our communities being terrorized and attacked. Our Queen City will not become a staging ground for fear. Amen. We will not confuse cruelty with safety, and we will not allow the politics of intimidation to define who belongs here. We saw this before in Chicago, where federal actions left families broken and trust shattered. And we will not allow Charlotte to follow that same path. CBP is not the same as ICE, but both agencies have operated without transparency, without oversight, and too often without humanity. Let's be clear. The CMPD is not participating, has not been asked to assist, and has no authority to intervene. But that does not mean we are powerless. We must act, we must use every tool within our moral and civic power to protect our residents, and we must make it clear that no city property, no local resources, and no taxpayer dollars will ever be used to help carry out these operations that terrorize our people. Amen. Charlotte's immigrant story is a global one, from Colombia and Mexico, to the Congo and Ethiopia, to Vietnam and Nepal, to Ukraine and Albania. When you attack one of us, you attack all of us. When you criminalize migration, you criminalize humanity. We must lead with courage, we must move with urgency, and we must protect every person who calls this city home. We will not wait for permission to do what's right. We will not stay silent while fear spreads, and we will not let federal agencies decide who belongs in our city. And to our immigrant neighbors, you are not alone, you are seen, you are valued, and you belong here. Charlotte's strength has never come from fear. It has come from faith in one another, from the courage of those who built this city with their hands, and from the love that binds us together. We do not welcome terror, we do not consent to cruelty, and we will not let fear define who we are, not in Charlotte, not in our Queen City, not on our watch. Buenos días. Esto es personal. Yo sé lo que se siente el miedo. Ese miedo que se siente en los huesos. El que te hace contener la respiración cuando tocan la puerta. El que no deja dormir a los padres temiendo no regresar a la casa al final del día. Ese miedo no es ajeno, es parte de mi historia. Crecí indocumentado acá en esta ciudad, en los mismos vecindarios donde hoy viven tantas familias inmigrantes. Y hoy estoy aquí como el primer latino y el primer inmigrante anteriormente indocumentado elegido al Consejo Municipal de la ciudad. Ayer, la oficina del Sheriff Gary McFadden confirmó que agentes de la protección fronteriza llegarán a Charlotte este fin de semana o la otra, sin transparencia, sin cuentas, sin explicación. Ni a los funcionarios locales, ni al público, ni a las familias merecen saber qué está pasando en su ciudad. Y quiero decir algo con mucha claridad. Esto no se trata de la seguridad pública, no se trata de criminales, no se trata de miedo, se trata de miedo, de cuotas y de control. Cuando agentes federales entran a nuestras comunidades sin aviso, sin causa, sin humanidad, no están protegiendo, están aterrorizando. Y no aceptamos que nuestras comunidades sean atacadas. Nuestra ciudad reina no será un escenario para el miedo y no vamos a confundir la crueldad con la seguridad, ni vamos a permitir que la política del terror defina quién pertenezca acá. El Departamento de Policía de Charlotte-Mecklenburg no tiene jurisdicción en estas operaciones. No participa, no puede intervenir y no se le ha pedido a colaborar. Pero eso no significa que no nos quedamos con los brazos cruzados. Debemos actuar, debemos usar cada herramienta moral y cívica para proteger a nuestra gente. Debemos dejar claro que ningún recurso, propiedad o dinero de los ciudadanos se usará para causar miedo o separar las familias. Porque esto no solo es un asunto latino, es un asunto humano. La historia inmigrante de esta ciudad viene de todas partes, de Colombia a México, del Congo y Etiopía, de Vietnam y Nepal, de Ucrania y Albania. Cuando atacan a uno de nosotros, nos atacan a todos. Cuando criminalizan la migración, criminalizan a los humanos. A mis colegas en todo el condado de Mecklenburg, debemos lidiar con valentía. Debemos movernos con urgencia y debemos proteger a todas las personas que llaman a esta ciudad su hogar. Y nosotros, a los vecinos inmigrantes, no están solos, los vemos, los valoramos y pertenecen aquí. La fuerza de Charlotte no viene del miedo, viene de la fe en los demás, de la valentía de quienes construyeron a esta ciudad con sus manos y el amor que nos damos. No damos bienvenida al terror, no consentimos la crueldad y no dejamos que el miedo defina quiénes somos nosotros. No en Charlotte, no en nuestra reina ciudad, no bajo nuestra mirada. Gracias.
Thank you. Next, we have County Commissioner Susan Rodriguez McDowell.
Buenos dias. I am Mecklenburg County Commissioner Susan Rodriguez McDowell. I, like so many of us, am the granddaughter of immigrants and also the wife of an immigrant. I am proud to be the first Latina elected to the Mecklenburg Board of County Commissioners, and I am darn sure I will not be the last. Latinos and other immigrants are here to stay, and thank goodness for that. Contrary to the current narrative in DC, we know that immigrants who come to the U.S. with or without authorization have lower rates of crime than native-born citizens, higher rates of entrepreneurship, and enrich our nation economically, socially, and culturally. But unfortunately, we are living in the strangest of times. A time when a felonious reality TV personality is occupying the White House. Unfortunately, we have seen this movie before, and now they want to film an episode of shock and awe show here in our city. We have seen the reports of masked men rappelling out of helicopters in the middle of the night to frighten and intimidate. We have seen the reports of men, women, and children who are traumatized by these un-American tactics. And we know that collateral damage is not only expected, it's encouraged. We know that these agents are not engaging in targeted actions meant to capture violent criminals. They are going for numbers, and it doesn't matter who gets in their way. They're being paid huge sign-on bonuses to do this work. It's a performance meant to destroy and shatter families. Well, let's not fall into the trap, Charlotte. Let's not give them what they want. We must always remain peaceful, and we must know and exercise our rights. We must prioritize safety and dignity over performance. Record their actions from a safe distance. Take notes if you're a witness to harsh treatment. The 5th and 14th Amendments mandate that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, a protection extended to every human being on American soil. Yes, you heard that right. The Constitution applies to all persons within the United States, whether their presence here is lawful, temporary, or permanent. It is the legal and moral responsibility of all authorities, and indeed all of us, to treat immigrants with dignity and justice. Whatever occurs in the coming days, we must meet the moment peacefully. reduce panic, and remember that due process will be back. There will come a time when this regime ends and justice and due process will become the order of the day again. Luckily, we have multiple trusted nonprofits who are mobilizing with assistance for those who may be impacted. Let us support by donating or volunteering with the Latin American Coalición, the Carolina.
All right, so this is a press conference from earlier. Those are a group. It's a group of Mecklenburg County leaders, activists, coming together, talking about the possibility of Border Patrol arriving as early as Saturday here in the Charlotte area. Now, I do want to read a statement that we got this evening. It was actually not a statement that we got, but we found on X, and it's from Greg Bovino. He is the U.S. Border Patrol commander. So he tweeted in response to, or I should say reposted on X in response to Representative Alma Adams. She put out a statement a couple of days ago on U.S. Border Patrol and ICE agents being deployed in the Charlotte area. So he responded back this afternoon. He said, immigrants, rest assured, we have your back like we did in Chicago, Los Angeles. Representative Adams, perhaps you and Governor Stein should learn the difference between an illegal alien and an immigrant. Illegal aliens have no place in our communities and should self-deport via CBP home. All right, so we are going to take a quick break. And again, that is a post from Commander Ops, leader of U.S. Border Patrol, Greg Bovino from earlier. But we're going to take a quick break. We're going to get back to that press conference on the other side of the break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. So we want to get back now to that press conference. A group of local officials and activists held a press conference this morning to address reports of Border Patrol launching operations possibly as soon as Saturday here in the Charlotte area. Let's take you there now.
And others. Let us make sure to support and frequent our immigrant-owned small businesses like restaurants, tiendas, salons, and others. Let this episode motivate all of us to work harder to drive out those in power who are not serving the people, but instead are profiting off of this performance. If they can pay $30,000 bonuses to recruit agents for their shock and awe show, surely we can elect leaders who will find a way to recruit and pay teachers and child care workers to do the important, critical work of our nation. I look forward to a time when the immigration process is depoliticized, and fair immigration reforms can be undertaken to create the kind of justice system we can all be proud of and that aligns with our true American values. Thank you.
Next, we will have the president of the NAACP, Charlotte Mecklenburg, Corinne Mack.
Good morning. I first want to start with reminding everyone within the sound of our voices that it was immigrants who built this country. Africans who were enslaved, who had no opportunity for freedom or even freedom of thought, were in fact immigrants. Now, we're talking about immigration as if it's something over there or over there. But the harm to every immigrant is harm to every one of us. In this country, we want to believe that the Constitution has protected us all, and in fact it has not. But that doesn't mean that we can't work to ensure that it does. In the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area, there are people standing behind me who have committed to ensure we are going to protect the people of this residence. We hope that includes all of you. From 2016 to 2020, I would go to hearings to stop deportations. And in those hearings, there'd be no one there but myself and maybe two other people. So this is not a new concept. This is a more egregious concept. We have a little man sitting in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue who really believes that Hitler was the greatest man ever on earth, whose whole vision is to be just like Hitler, and is trying to create a 1940s Germany right here in the United States. And like then, many people said, well, it's them, it's not me, until eventually it was them. We can no longer be silent. Our responsibility is to understand our responsibility as a human being. Yes. To care, to be considerate, to be passionate, to be loving towards one another. We're talking about human beings. When we say immigration or immigrants, we're talking about human beings, men, women, and children, yes, who are walking in this city, who are working in this city, who are being educated in this city in fear. No person should have to live under the dark cloud of fear, especially when all you want is to live the American dream, which has now become a nightmare. I am asking each and every one of you to take part in elevating the lives of every resident of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area. If you have any sense of your own humanity, understand we are only as great as how we treat the other person. Love must be the foundation of who we are and how we move. I remember when this conversation first started about 4 years ago, openly and publicly. It was the Latino community that was the face of immigration. And sadly, it's the Latino community that is being directly affected in larger numbers. But there are Africans and Haitians and Jamaicans and all people of many different hues, some more melanated than others, who are also living in fear. Right. We can no longer be in silos. It can't be about one group. It has to be about all of us. Yeah. About our humanity. Who are we? What will be our story? What legacy will we be leaving for our children? Now, I know many of you care. Many of you are also afraid. But I'm asking you to step past your fear. Stand up, speak up, embrace this movement to ensure that every one of us have a better quality of life. Every one of us can live our dream, whatever that dream may be. Amen. Again, love must be the foundation. And God's perfect love casts out all fear. God bless you.
We will now have Hector Vaca from Action NC.
Good morning. Buenos días a todos. I'm not just here as a part of Action NC. I'm also here as the child of migrants, Puerto Rican mother, Ecuadorian father. I'm here as the son of a man who in 2009 took his life because of our immigration system. It is not a broken immigration system. It is designed to function this way and hurt the immigrant community. I'm here as that. I'm also here as someone who, in the past, has been affected by CBP and immigration tactics, including being stopped at the airport by CBP and having to prove my U.S. citizenship, and being made by ICE to strip off my clothing as a U.S. citizen to show that I don't have any tattoos. We're here today to address the upcoming invasion of an extremist group that is coming to Charlotte as part of the current regime's racist campaign of terror. I'm talking, in this case, about the Border Patrol. They're coming to do what we have seen them do all over the country already. The kidnapping of children and the disappearing of hardworking mothers and fathers and grandfathers and grandmothers. In many cases, U.S. citizens. Over 70% of people being disappeared right now by this current regime have no criminal convictions. That is to say that hardworking people who follow the law and contribute to our community are being taken from their families. Their tactics are brutal. Children are being kidnapped on their way to school or walking down the street or from their own homes. Parents are being taken and disappeared from work while paying bills, driving to work, or taking their children to and from school. In many cases, while people were respecting the law and showing up for their asylum and other immigration-related court hearings, we have seen our elders thrown to the ground by the Border Patrol and ICE agents. Most recently, a man was shot by them while asking them to please move down the street because school buses were going to be arriving at that intersection. If you look at any dictionary for the definition of terrorism, it boils down to any action that seeks to terrorize a population in pursuit of a social, economic, or political agenda. By this definition, what they are doing can only be described as acts of terrorism. Let us be clear, CBP and ICE tactics are not based in the U.S. Constitution and the rule of law. They have their roots in xenophobia, racism, and persecution of people and families fleeing violence and poverty in search of the same American dream that we all seek. The community thanks our elected officials for stepping up and speaking out like leaders and champions against these injustices. We, the community, look forward to working with them as they continue to step up like true leaders and champions and enact policies that will protect our community from these abuses, including enacting policies to punish any law enforcement officer who violates the law or the Constitution. Congratulations to the new police chief. She has stepped into a new leadership role with the potential to enact real change. It is our hope that she will show the courage that her predecessors lacked and will continue holding law enforcement, will commit to holding law enforcement accountable when it hurts our community, including adopting a written policy of no collaboration with ICE and CBP. We call on the city manager as the chief of the chief to make this happen. Thank you to the sheriff for pulling out of the 287G program and committed to not collaborating with policies and agencies that profile and target our loved ones. We need you to hold strong and not break. Principles and doing the right thing should take precedence over unjust policies rooted in hatred. Thank you to CMS for doing all it can to protect our children. We, the community, look forward to working with CMS to take it further and not just allow ICE on the properties, but working with CMS to ensure that nonprofits are allowed to work with the students and the parents and the teachers and staff and teach them what their rights are and how to interact with law enforcement to continue protecting the children. We need that to happen. The community, and I will end it with the community. We're stronger when we're together. As my beautiful friend Corinne just said a few minutes ago, we need to have courage. We need to step up together. If you see something, record it, report it. If you see something, see anybody being hurt in your community, step up and say something. Because only together can we make a difference. Only together can we continue having our champions take it to the next step and be the leaders and the champions that we all know they can be, that we believe that they can be. Because once again, we are stronger when we're together. Now, I'll give a brief version of this for the Spanish language media. Hola, soy Héctor Vaca. Soy hijo de migrantes, mamá puertorriqueña, papá ecuatoriano. Pero también estoy aquí porque yo he sido afectado por la manera que ICE y CBP funcionan. Yo he tenido que mostrar la prueba que yo soy ciudadano a la patrulla fronteriza cuando me hicieron mostrarle mi ciudadanía. El ICE me ha hecho a mí quitarme la ropa para mostrar que yo no llevo tatuajes. Estamos aquí para hablar sobre el ataque a nuestra comunidad, que es parte de la campaña de terror del régimen actual. Vienen aquí para lo que estoy hablando de la fuerza fronteriza. Vienen aquí para hacer lo que están haciendo en otras partes del país, secuestrando niños, desapareciendo padres y madres y abuelos, y en muchos casos estadounidenses. Más del 70% de la gente que se están llevando no tienen ningún antecedente criminal. Muchas de las veces son ciudadanos de este país. Gente que está contribuyendo. Las tácticas que están haciendo están llevándose, secuestrando niños en camino a la escuela. Padres y abuelos se están desapareciendo en camino al trabajo, a pagar sus cuentas, o llevando o trayendo a los niños a la escuela. En muchos casos, gente respetando las leyes de este país, en camino o saliendo de las cortes para sus casos de inmigración. Entonces, si miran cualquier diccionario de la definición de terrorismo, al final es esto: cualquier táctica o acción que trata de aterrorizar a una población buscando fines económicos, sociales o políticos. Entonces, por esa definición, lo que están haciendo es terrorismo. Tenemos que estar claros. Lo que están haciendo es brutal, atacando a nuestra comunidad. Les damos las gracias a las personas elegidas por ser líderes, campeones, protegiendo a la comunidad. Nosotros, la comunidad, estamos listos para trabajar con los funcionarios políticos para enactar leyes políticas que van a proteger a nuestra comunidad, especialmente arrestando agentes del orden, quienes violan la ley, la Constitución y atacan a nuestra comunidad. Felicitamos a la nueva jefa de la policía por su nuevo cargo, y esperamos que tenga el coraje que los otros policías jefes antes de ella no tuvieron, y que enacte una política de no colaboración con ICE ni la patrulla fronteriza. Le damos las gracias al alguacil, al sheriff, por cortar la 287G y decidir no trabajar con estas personas atacando a nuestra comunidad. Queremos que siga con eso, porque al final, principios y...
All right, so that is a press conference from earlier. Activists, local officials weighing in, giving their thoughts on the reports of Border Patrol coming to Charlotte, possibly coming as early as Saturday. On the other side of the break, we're going to hear from South Carolina Congressman Ralph Norman on his thoughts on Border Patrol coming to Charlotte. But we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. So earlier today, we spoke with Congressman Ralph Norman, who represents Rock Hill. He joined us here on Live Impact News this afternoon, spoke with Julie Kay. He says he believes Border Patrol coming to Charlotte is a good idea. Here's their full interview.
A really great interview right now. U.S. Representative Ralph Norman is here. Representative Norman, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Glad to be with you.
And I know you represent Rock Hill, which is going to obviously be right there impacted by this. So I'm curious, just to start off, what are your initial thoughts and how did you hear about this move?
I heard it through the media, and it's a great day for Mecklenburg County. It's a great day for all the surrounding areas, Rock Hill being close by. Look, the crime situation in Charlotte has reached new levels. I went to the Frederico hearing about a month ago, and it's horrendous what happened to their daughter. That was in Columbia, but the Ukrainian girl that got murdered is a tragedy. Tom Homan is a true patriot. When he comes to places, he's coming to get known criminals, gang members, and to take them off the streets, and he's done a great job of it. How other areas, other cities are fighting this is beyond me.
Now, you mentioned, of course, surrounding areas also being impacted by this, Rock Hill. We are still trying to hammer out the details, of course, of where they're going to be focused. Are you hoping that this kind of bleeds into Rock Hill?
Absolutely. And the great thing about what Tom Homan is doing, his mission is to root out crime and to take the criminals off the streets wherever they are. I could see him going into a remote area. They know how to track criminals. They know where they are. And you won't know where he's going other than he wants the cooperation of the FBI, the Sheriff's Department, the Police Department in Mecklenburg County, which hopefully he will get. So it's a great thing the president's doing. It's a great thing, great day for Mecklenburg County.
I'm curious too, we just got this confirmation yesterday from Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office, and that statement said that Sheriff McFadden had not, received any requests for them to participate, any requests for that other than, cooperation. What are your thoughts on this operation, being separate from local law enforcement?
Well, what they do is, from my understanding, is they know how to corral and how to catch the criminals. Now, there are occasions where they will need to contact the different agencies for backup or for help, or if there's a question, they will reach out. But the great thing they're doing is alerting all the departments within the area that they're here. When they call, I think they will hopefully get support from all the different agencies, because again, they're looking for criminals, looking for gang members who are wreaking havoc all over the country, and Mecklenburg County is one of the areas that they're doing it in.
You mentioned Irina Zarutska's murder on the light rail. Is there any other instance in recent months that stuck out to you as a reason you think that this needs to happen here in Mecklenburg County?
As you talk to people, when you go downtown Charlotte, the homeless situation is unfathomable now. The known, and even is bleeding into Rock Hill, because a lot of the homeless from Charlotte are coming to Rock Hill. We have the interstate, and we have the pathways and other agencies that want to help out. But I know our sheriff's department is actively involved with catching that are using the addresses of the places that they're getting food and shelter, but they're known criminals. And so it's traced back to a lot of the ones here in Rock Hill. But in Charlotte, I'm sure it's the same way. But the feedback I've been getting, it's getting more and more less safe in Charlotte. A lot of people are emptying out over, when the nighttime comes, and they just don't feel safe. So that's what Tom Homan is doing to clean it up, and I think he'll do that.
I know there have been some criticisms of the delay maybe in how this information came out. Of course, it got leaked on Monday, and then the sheriff's office got confirmation yesterday, but still some, murky details about how this operation is going to go down. Do you have any more information that you're able to share, or I'm curious your thoughts on how you think this information process has been?
I think they've been active now since Donald Trump took office, 11 months. They have it down to a T on exactly what to do. I think what's unknown is, these things play out on the ground when they're in the field, when they're making the arrest. That's what's the unknown. Some of them are in businesses that by all accounts are doing a great business, but they have people working there that have broken the law. That's where I think they need some help. And they are experienced enough now to know how to leak the information where it benefits their ultimate goal, which is to get the criminals off the street. So it's quiet in one way, but then in another way it's not, because they know exactly where they're going. They know exactly who they're going to catch, and they know exactly how they're going to do it.
So it sounds like they're very, very focused on known criminals, as you've said. Is there any other things you think they're going to focus on while they're here? Any other things that you think that they should be targeting?
No, I think in a lot of cases when they put a dragnet on a area, people that are here illegally that hadn't committed crimes could get caught up in that. And it's just a fact that it's we have an immigration problem, thanks to Joe Biden, that to the tune of 20 million people from every country with every background that unfortunately is turned to the criminal side. And that's what he's after first and foremost. It could be some, though, that are that live around them, that are involved with the work, that are just here illegally, that hadn't committed a crime. And that's where you hear some, I guess, uproar from different people. But bottom line, he's making the city safer. He's making the county safer, and he's doing a great job doing it.
And you've been very complimentary of Border Patrol specifically. This is going to be a really interesting operation to watch, as it's the first time Border Patrol is kind of spearheading this without direct coordination with ICE, as like what's happening in Chicago right now. I'm curious what you think about the decision to have Border Patrol lead this individually.
I think the fact they're having Border Patrol agents doing it, what's unfortunate is I heard a percentage that the assault on our ICE agents and on our undercover agents working with Tom Homan's group, they've been under attack, and the assaults on them have increased 8,000%, which is untold. They're putting their life on the line every time they go in a house and arrest somebody. They don't know what they're going to find. So that's the unfortunate part. But the mission stays the same, whether they get try to be thwarted by the different agencies. They're going to keep doing the same thing until we rid the criminals that are in this country illegally and get them out of the country.
All right, U.S. Representative Ralph Norman, anything else you wanted to share that I haven't asked about that you think is important for people to know?
No, I would just say that as they come in, to welcome them, to work with them. Safety is the name now of innocent citizens, as we've seen with the Ukraine girl. She didn't get that opportunity. So just welcome them and work with them, and I think they'll get the job done.
All right, Representative, thank you so much for taking the time. We really, really appreciate it.
All right, you can check out that full interview on our digital platforms. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. So earlier today, we spoke with the North Carolina senator on a lawsuit over AI-generated likeness in ads. So Senator Deandra Salvador is suing a company responsible for using her voice, which was, as she's claiming, manipulated with artificial intelligence in a television ad. We also asked her about Border Patrol coming to Charlotte as well. Take a listen in to that full interview with Julie Kay from earlier.
We do want to turn, though, to some other really interesting news. We have Senator Salvador here, who represents parts of Mecklenburg County as well. And Senator, you filed a lawsuit over an AI-generated ad that used your voice. This is a really interesting topic that we have discussed really across the country, but you have a personal experience here. If you could just walk me through what happened.
Yeah, so for me, it was a really shocking experience to have a whistleblower reach out and ask if this advertisement, which received the top award at what some call the Oscars of advertising, Cons Leon, if the person speaking in that was me. And it was really tough because, yes, it was me, but it also was not. It was me saying things I never said. Content behind me was really strategic strategically modified as well. So it was baffling, it was infuriating, and it was really deeply concerning to find that out as well.
Yeah, and what did they pull from? I know this was a Whirlpool ad, I believe, and they pulled from a previous TED Talk that you had done and then added onto it from there. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So in 2018, I gave a TED Talk focused on my nonprofit work at the time, focused on energy affordability. And essentially, it took the research as well as some of the statements I made about serving communities here in the United States and Charlotte, and it changed them to appear as if I was speaking about communities in Brazil, as well as even changing the numbers and the content behind me before it immediately cuts to the appliances ad and talks about a financing program that I believe they ran down in Brazil. And so it was, really baffling. It felt like a complete erasure of communities that I care about. And again, I don't understand why this was done, and certainly why they didn't get consent or, no amount of awareness.
So tell me about your decision to file a lawsuit. What have you heard from the company, if anything?
So, the decision to file the lawsuit, when we reached out to all the parties involved, so Whirlpool, Omnicom, in particular, we really were not met with any meaningful engagement. In fact, the folks who seemed to be even closer to it, I thought came back with a high level of aggression and pushback, and really not even showing genuine signs of remorse or taking stock of how the situation came to light. And between that, as well as understanding just how we're seeing things move and the dangerous precedent if we don't push back, I decided to file the lawsuit because, for me personally, it was deeply troubling. It has been something that's been time consuming and concerning, but also for others, I think we will see more and more cases like this commercially and otherwise.
I know you described it as troubling. I can only imagine. I know that you're not the only person who's had to deal with a situation like this. We've seen it in political ads. We've seen it in just, your regular folks, your average everyday constituents. What message do you want this to send to the people that you represent about how you're going to stand up for their rights when it comes to this growing problem of AI-generated content?
So I think the message that we have to send is that this is not all right, and we will continue to stand up for it with the existing laws, but also with any additional clarifications or changes that might continue to need to be had as well. I don't believe that we should start allowing companies to completely degrade trust in such a way so strategically, and then not be held accountable for those decisions. And so as much as the technology is also the utilization and misuse of the technology that, I'm deeply concerned about.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of people will be having close eyes on this lawsuit as it really sets a precedent here. I do also want to ask you, of course, you represent parts of Mecklenburg County, and we are dealing with a lot here in Charlotte right now with Border Patrol on their way. We're still waiting for those details, so I know it's all very preliminary, but I just wanted to give you a chance to talk about any general thoughts you have on that deployment.
Yeah, I'm frustrated just with the amount of secrecy, mainly because the secrecy is wreaking havoc and chaos on communities. I am really troubled by the things that we have seen with the deployment in Chicago and other areas. Children impacted, communities living in fear. And I really am concerned that this is more of a political maneuver as opposed to anything dealing with safety. And especially when there is such additional impacts that we've seen with the way folks are profiled. I certainly encourage everyone to find organizations to know their rights in these moments, find trusted networks, because it is something that we all should be concerned about for the impact that it'll have to communities here.
Yeah, and I know we're all paying close attention just to see what this is actually going to look like. So we appreciate you taking the time to come on here, not just about that, but of course about your lawsuit as well. Thank you so much, Senator Salvador, for taking the time.
All right, thank you.
All right, so we are going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. So we got some updates into our newsroom out of Columbia, South Carolina. So here's the headline from our web article. So a South Carolina man is executed by a firing squad for 2004 killings. I read you a little bit of what we have right now. So South Carolina firing squad has executed a man Friday, the third person to die by that method in the state this year. 3 prison employees, all with live ammunition, volunteered to carry out the execution of Stephen Bryant, 44 years old, who was pronounced dead at 6:05 p.m. Bryant killed 3 people in 5 days in a rural area in South Carolina back in 2004. So we heard from officials this evening after the execution. Let's take a listen here.
I'm Christy Shane, Director of Communications at the South Carolina Department of Corrections. That's CHRYSTISHAIN. The capital punishment sentence for Stephen Corey Bryant was carried out tonight pursuant to the order of the South Carolina Supreme Court and in accordance with state law. The execution was performed by a 3-person firing squad and began at 6:02 p.m. He was pronounced dead by a physician at 6:05 p.m. Bryant, 44, was sentenced to death for crimes committed during an 8-day Sumter County crime spree in October 2004, in which he murdered 3 people: Willard T.J. Tejan, 62, Clifton Gainey, 36, and Christopher Burgess, 35. He was sentenced to death for murdering Tejan, whom he shot 9 times, burned his face and eyes with a cigarette, and wrote, "Catch me if you can," on the wall in the victim's blood. Bryant did not make a final statement. Witnesses to the execution included 3 members of the Tejan family, a representative from the 3rd Circuit Solicitor's Office, which prosecuted the cases, a representative from the Sumter County Sheriff's Office, Bryant's attorney, and 3 members of the news media who will address you in just a minute. After all 3 speak, they will answer questions from the podium. They will not be available for interviews after the press conference ends because they have to write their stories as well. First, Jeffrey Collins from the Associated Press.
I'm Jeffrey Collins with the Associated Press. That's JEFFREYCOLLINS. I'm just going to kind of lay out how things went from start to the end. We got inside the capital punishment facility about 5:57. The curtain was raised in front right at 6, promptly at 6. Bryant was already strapped into the chair, as the other 2 inmates who faced the firing squad had been strapped. Nothing was much different than that. His arms were strapped down, legs were strapped. There's a strap around his head. He didn't have a final statement, so the hood was placed on his head shortly after the 6 o'clock when the curtain was raised. At 6:01, in about 15 seconds, that's when one of the prison employees went over and raised the shade where the shooters are. And then about 55 seconds later, that's when the shots rang out. During those 55 seconds, Bryant, obviously was breathing, but he wasn't breathing as heavy as the other 2 firing squad inmates I've seen that had some very deep breaths. His breaths were a little more shallow before it happened. The shots fired. The target that was on his chest, it's a red bullseye, it actually flew off several feet in front of him. And at that point, there were several shallow breaths over the next 30 seconds. Bryant made no noise. He didn't. There was absolutely no noise in the chamber at all outside of the gunshots. And shallow breaths for about 30 seconds. Then there appeared to be no breathing except for about, I would say, roughly about 1 minute and 10 seconds after that initial shot. There was like a spasm, maybe a cough, just like something that was like an involuntary or maybe involuntary, just like a jerk, like a cough or something along those lines. The doctor came in 15 seconds after that. Doctor examined him for about a minute with a stethoscope, and he was pronounced dead about right at 6:05. And I have a different angle, so I'm going to let Ted Clifford talk about, he saw actually what the wound and everything looked like, so I'm going to let Ted talk about that.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ted Clifford. That's TEDCLIFFORD, and I'm with the state newspaper. I think Jeffrey did a good job of laying out the times. We arrived there just before 6. The curtain opened pretty much right at 6. The shots were fired at about 6:02. The moment the shots were fired, as Jeffrey said, the target, which imagine a white Post-it note sized piece of paper with a red bullseye on it, flew off his chest about halfway across the room. It looked like it landed somewhere behind the electric chair, which is placed in the middle of the room. Over the next couple of minutes, his body was, very still, other than the small movements that Jeffrey described. But you could start to see a sort of a spreading kind of pool of wetness across his chest. They're wearing black, so you couldn't, it's obviously blood. You can't see necessarily that it's blood. I think Jeffrey again hit on many of the key points, but just to mention a few other details. He's strapped back with his arms behind him. There's a sling around his neck that sort of pushes his face up, and you could see he gave a very quick glance towards the witnesses, but he didn't stare, he didn't appear to look around the room. He mostly stared forwards until the hood was put on. His hands are in mittens, and then by 6:04, when death was pronounced, the body was completely still. There was no movement to speak of.
My name's Naomi Popa. I'm with WIS in Columbia. It's spelled NAOMI for Naomi and POPA for Popa. Similar to those standing with me, I kind of want to go back to the room a little bit for those that are not familiar with what this room looks like, or have seen the photo that the media does have. You are seated in somewhat of 3 rows in this room. We entered just before 6 o'clock. You've got metal bars that are on the ceiling, and then in front of you are 6 windows and a door with a window on top, and then several sets of windows on top of that. And in front of that, all metal navy blue bars. That curtain that was draped across was about burgundy, dark, deep red sort of color. That curtain opened at right around 6 o'clock, and then at 6:01, the hood was placed over his head, similar to what was already mentioned. He was mostly looking straight forward. He did not appear, at least in the vision in the area that I was in, did not appear to glance over, but again, all 3 of us sat in very different, not next to each other, but had different views. That hood was placed over his head, and his demeanor was forward. He was wearing somewhat of mittens, black gloves that were kind of chained or kind of tucked behind his side. His feet were also shackled to the chair. And for those that are unfamiliar, this room, he was placed, if you're a witness and you're observing forward, he's in the left corner, kind of tucked away with that white post-it kind of strapped onto his chest there with the red bullseye. Notably, that bullseye, as we mentioned, went forward. It shot forward as soon as the shots were fired, and those shots were fired at 6:02. He took several deep breaths. His chest seemed to, the best way that I can describe it, kind of rose and fell shortly after the shots were fired. And within about a minute, the doctor entered and checked multiple locations on his body for a pulse. After that, the doctor left. That took about a minute, and then right at 6:05, he was announced dead.
Go ahead. Do you have any questions, please?
What about the witnesses? Did you guys see any reactions from the witnesses? Did they have anything to say?
Thank you for answering that, because I realized I didn't tell you all about the witnesses. So there were 3 members of the victim's family, and they sat on the front row as they always do, and the 3 of them held hands. And there was, as always, whenever the shots are fired, all 3 times, people flinch. I don't think it's impossible not to, because you have no warning that the shots are coming. But beyond that, there was no real, them holding hands and that flinching, there's no real reaction from any of the witnesses in the room. Everybody was just staring straight ahead and looking at what happened.
Other questions?
Because you've witnessed the 2 others, you described that there was like more shallow breathing compared to the 2. Were there any other differences you noticed?
There were a couple of differences. The first 2, Brad Sigmund and Mikhail Mahdi, their breathing was much deeper after the hood was put over their head. Like, they were taking, almost like, I don't want to say nervous breaths, but they're taking very deep breaths before. Bryant had no real reaction. Like I said, I can't 100% definitively tell you that he was looking at us when the curtain opened. His eyes glanced that way, but is it the same kind of glance that you give whenever there's motion that direction? I don't even know if he really took in who we were. Another difference was, unlike Mahdi, there was no noise at all. He made no noise after the shots were fired. There was nothing except for the shots being fired that you could hear in the chamber itself. And then the breathing afterwards, in both the earlier ones, it seemed like they were a little deeper breathing after the shots were fired, but before breathing stopped. But again, he wasn't breathing very deeply even before the shots were fired. And I guess too, it's always interesting too to see this person in front of you that you've seen before. And this is an interesting one for me, because I've seen. I actually wrote a story about when he was still on the loose, and it was going on in Sumter County. So that is a little bit different, but that's more in my headspace. And anyway.
Other questions? Anyone?
Yeah.
Okay, have a few other things to say. Several of you have asked about Bryant's specially requested last meal. It was Asian food, spicy mixed seafood stir fry over rice, fried fish over rice, 2 egg rolls, 3 stuffed shrimp, duck and soy sauce, 2 Zero candy bars, German chocolate cake, and 2 Pepsis. It was served Wednesday evening as usual. The press area and building will be open for the next hour and will close at 7:40. After that, we'll ask you to leave as we are closing down for the evening. Thank you very much.
All right, we are going to step aside. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. So we just wrapped up election season. Now a lot of eyes are looking towards the 2026 midterm elections, and we're looking at polls, we're looking at trends heading to the 2026 election season. So we spoke with Donald Bryson this week. He's the CEO of the John Locke Foundation, discussing trends among North Carolina voters ahead, again, of the 2026 midterm election. He spoke with Vanessa Rufus. Let's take a listen in.
We got to talk politics here, not just North Carolina, but also kind of sentiment as North Carolina voters are looking about how they feel about what's going on in the realm of the United States and how the country's going. We've got the CEO of John Locke Foundation joining us right now, Donald Bryson. Thank you so much for being with us here.
Well, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, really enjoy your insights. We are seeing now the survey here that's been done of potential or likely North Carolina voters coming up here on 2026. Of course, important to know as we're coming off of the most recent municipal elections, there was kind of a message perchance that was sent amongst, some voting trends that we saw. But now folks are looking ahead to the midterms. And so we're seeing some numbers here, and just kind of want to get your take on your thoughts on the general trends that we see, because we see this survey talking about not only whether folks expect to vote during the 2026 election, but how they feel politics in the country and the state of North Carolina are going.
Sure, and again, thanks for having me on today. We have a news division ourselves. We have a newspaper at the John Locke Foundation called Carolina Journal, and they do this poll. We work in concert with Harper Polling out of Pennsylvania, and do about 8 or 10 of these a year. And to answer your base question, how do people feel about the country and the state of North Carolina, is I would say that they're generally pessimistic, and they've been that way for a while, for most of the year now. Our poll came out this week, and it was done just over the weekend, and we got the results back on Tuesday. Indicates that people feel 55% of people in North Carolina feel that the country is headed on the wrong track. 38.3% say that the country is headed in the right direction. We see similar sentiment for the state of North Carolina, with 47.9% saying the state is on the wrong track, and 34.6% is in the right direction. Now that is pessimistic, and it's not not the best. But I will say it reflects that North Carolina is slightly more optimistic about the direction of the country than what we've seen from some national polling. There was an Economist poll that came out just yesterday, as a matter of fact, where it said that 61% of those surveyed across the country said that the country is off on the wrong track, compared to 30% saying it's headed in the right direction. So I think the country is generally pessimistic, but North Carolina is slightly more optimistic in their pessimism.
I'm just kind of curious about, the demographics in your surveying and in your sampling, and in the sense that, when you look at different states, and obviously you can probably expect to see when you sample what is hopefully a representative population that would represent the population of the entire state, you might start to see a little bit more skewing on one side when you kind of consider political parties. North Carolina is interesting, I feel like, and the reason why we always tend to watch it during elections, because you do have quite a good mix of Republicans, Democrats, and unaffiliated voters. What are your thoughts as far as how your sampling was with that? And do you think that any of the trends that you saw as far as pessimism was influenced by the fact that maybe there was more of a certain political party that was kind of skewing the numbers? I'm just kind of curious about the kind of the backstory.
No, it's a great question. So our poller, Harper Polling, they do a really good job of trying to get our sample model based off of the most recent midterm election or presidential election year, depending on what we're polling. In this, it would be a midterm election. And so we try to get all the demographics to match that as closely as we possibly can. It's never perfect. There's a blend of science and art with polling, but that's how that is drawn, and then we draw names from the voter database, and people select in or out about whether or not they're likely voters. We only poll likely voters, and so that's how we generally do it. My takeaway from this poll is it's all about the economy. I think when you go further into the poll, and by the way, it's available at carolinajournal.com if people want to take a look at the top lines and the crosstabs. 58% of voters, a majority, are not confident in the U.S. economy. A plurality say they're not confident at all. In those demographics, we see that lower income voters have the least amount of confidence in the U.S. economy, which makes some sense. A majority of voters across the state are not confident in the U.S. economy, but confidence is highest, and this is interesting to me, in the Charlotte and then Winston-Salem, Greensboro television markets. Don't know why that is. Maybe things are going a lot better in Charlotte and in the Triad. But that's just an interesting breakdown in a way that, if I'm running a political campaign, say for U.S. Senate, that's something I would pay attention to. But who do we assign blame to and why? That's interesting, because all this was going on during the government shutdown. A plurality of voters blame Democrats in Congress for the federal government shutdown. They're about 5% over Republicans, but again, a quarter of voters blame both parties.
Yeah, that really is, I feel like that's an interesting takeaway, and also kind of the granular element that you called out earlier about the Charlotte and Greensboro markets. That is really, really interesting to see. The other thing that kind of caught my eye, and I'm glad you looked at the shutdown, because obviously it was such a big topic for so long, not only here in North Carolina, but nationwide, the fact that there are some political figures who are specifically posed in some of these questions. So it looks like you asked folks about Governor Josh Stein, about the president, Donald Trump, and also looking ahead to some of the races in the future. So I see, questions about Roy Cooper and Michael Whatley, as we know that Senate race is going to be very, very highly watched and probably highly spent when you think about the amount of dollars and cents that are going to be poured into that race.
Sure. We did ask a lot of questions about specific, and that U.S. Senate race very well may be, a $900 million or $1 billion Senate race, which is just crazy to think about in terms of the money. Speaking about the president and the governor, it looks like the honeymoon period might be over for President Trump in North Carolina. He's the most well-known political figure on earth right now. There are very few people who don't have an opinion about him. Since we began polling his approval ratings when he came back in office earlier this year, but we polled this for the first time in March, there's been a 4-point shift from away from approve toward disapprove. So this poll had him at 52.8% disapprove compared to 45.7% approve. He had been just slightly above water back in March, and that's declined over time. The unsure has not changed hardly at all, but it's almost a like-for-like 4-point shift away from approve to disapprove. And so that's not way underwater, but it is in fact underwater. Similarly, we've seen a shift for Governor Josh Stein. He's lost about 6% of his approval rating and gained nearly 9% in his disapproval rating. But the thing is, he was already 35 points above water on his approval rating when we first started polling this back in March at 55% to 20%. This poll finds him with a 49.5% approval rating, so right around 50% to 28.9% of disapproval. But I think the economy and Donald Trump are going to be the nexus of all of the elections happening next year. And of course, North Carolina has a U.S. Senate race. Former Democratic Governor Roy Cooper has put in on the Democratic side, and then Michael Whatley and a fellow named Don Brown have put in on the Republican side. Michael Whatley, of course, is a former North Carolina GOP chairman and then also former Republican National Committee chairman. And we have Roy Cooper leading both of those races, 47 to 39% over Whatley and 48 to 38% over Don Brown. I think that the big takeaway from that is that 38 to 39% is probably your base Republican vote, and whoever the Republican candidate ends up being, I think people would say Michael Whatley is the front runner, have a lot of ground to make up just to get name recognition and start appealing to voters about what the Republican message is.
Now, you mentioned a few moments ago, the president and also the economy. And I did see that y'all had a question about tariffs and how folks view the tariffs, whether they feel like this helps or hurts the economy, because we've been seeing this kind of dichotomy in messaging, as we would expect, split amongst party lines for the most part about, this is helping, this is potentially going to be, a game changer in the long run. We hear from Republicans, including the president, and then from the Democrat side and other folks who have kind of split or splintered from their party in their views on the tariffs, saying that this is hurting folks right now, and it will only continue to get worse. And I think about as we get closer and closer to the holidays, we talk a lot of shopping and gift giving and ways that, we might start to see tariffs impacting us as we get into the holidays with our spending. Were there any interesting takeaways that y'all saw with the results on that question?
Yeah, particularly we asked one question about if people will spend more or less on holiday spending. Of course, we're coming to that time of year, right, where we're all about to be in the Christmas rush, thinking about Black Friday, and I found it interesting that Black Friday deals have already started. But in our poll, 2/3, 67% of likely voters in North Carolina say that they will spend less on the holidays this year compared to last year. That's not a great sign for the economy. Black Friday is important and it's called Black Friday because that's when a lot of companies go into the black. But as it relates to tariffs do increase the cost of goods. There does seem to be a good bit of concern about that. When we ask people, do you think that the United States imposing tariff helps or hurts the national economy, 53.5% said that it hurts, compared to 37.7% saying that it helps. But I think this is really the important question. When we said, do you think the U.S. imposing tariffs helps or hurts your family's financial situation? 55.8% of people said that it hurts. 19.1% of people say that it helps. And so that, people are starting to think about the crunch of holiday spending. How do we make the dollar stretch as we go into the holidays and buy those gifts or the travel or whatever is involved? And I think people are concerned about that. And we've seen that message from the White House in the past few days that President Trump is going to need to get out there, according to them, and talk about cost of living.
Can you talk about the reason why y'all like to do these surveys and the insights that you hope to bring to folks, and who you hope will take these insights and do what they will with them? What is your goal in doing these surveys?
Sure. So, the John Locke Foundation is a public policy think tank. We study public policy in North Carolina. So people have probably heard of the Heritage Foundation or the Cato Institute or the Brookings Institute in Washington, D.C. to study federal policy, and we do the same thing in North Carolina. And we've talked a little bit about federal stuff today, but we view polling as part of our research, in that it shows what is politically possible, what voters are concerned about, because it's very difficult to get anything done that is wildly unpopular with voters. It's easier to get things done that are popular with voters. We do live in a democratic republic. And so our primary audience would probably be lawmakers, and show them in real time what voters think about certain issues and what the political climate is. But we also just make it publicly available because, getting citizens involved in addition to businesses or other people that influence lawmakers helps educate the public policy process.
Now, as we look at these numbers, and you mentioned that this is something that y'all do pretty regularly, trying to keep a finger on the pulse of what voters are thinking. As we get closer and closer to midterms, how much of a swing do you expect to see with some of these numbers, specifically the ones that look at races? And I know it's hard to kind of crystal ball this, but I guess historically, if you will, do you feel like you tend to see really large swings over the course of a year? Is that very possible, or do you think that there are some cases where it might kind of hover around the same region, if you will?
I will anticipate on the U.S. Senate race that swing dramatically. I can imagine Michael Whatley's number swinging 7 points very quickly, probably sometime around March or April after the primary elections that go on in early March. So I can see that going up. It's a matter of how much money is going to be spent early on. I think that right now, if putting it on my crystal ball, I think this is likely a 50-50 race. It's going to be very expensive and very difficult. We've had, if you look back to the 1980s, a very popular Democratic governor, as Roy Cooper was, and Jim Hunt was back in the 80s, run for U.S. Senate, and that turned into at that time, the most expensive U.S. Senate race in North Carolina history. And that governor, who was popular, ended up losing that race and turned around and was elected to 2 more terms as governor, which is allowed under our state constitution. So looking back at history and knowing just how sort of striated North Carolina politics are, I think that this is going to be a very close race. I think, in my mind, I'm really curious about whether or not some of these third parties like the Green Party or the Libertarian Party might also field a candidate and throw a wrench in the plans of the 2 larger parties.
Yeah, it's always interesting. I'm sure you always have so much to dive into and think about, as you're doing these surveys, and also just thinking about why maybe sometimes you're coming up with these numbers. Anything you want to leave our viewers with before we wrap things up here?
Well, one, thanks again for having me on. If viewers want to take a look at our top lines and our cost tabs, we put the entire poll online. You can go to carolinajournal.com to view that poll. And if you ever get a phone call or an email inviting you to a poll, please take it, because we always hear feedback on our poll saying, well, nobody ever polled me. But if you don't take them, then you're not included in the sample, and we always value your opinion.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. CEO of John Locke Foundation, Donald Bryson, thank you so much for your time. Really interesting chat.
All right, some great insight there on the upcoming election in 2026. He'll be here before you know it. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. So as we have been reporting, Charlotte will be the next city where Border Patrol will begin an immigration enforcement operation. That's according to a report from NBC News. Also, we got confirmation this week from the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office. We heard from officials today from both sides of the aisle. We had in studio this afternoon Charlotte City Councilman Malcolm Graham, and he spoke about it. Let's get to his interview. He came in here again in studio this afternoon, spoke with our Julie Kay. Let's take a listen in case you missed it.
All right, we are here with City Councilman Malcolm Graham to discuss the big news of the week. Border Patrol is on their way to Charlotte, but Malcolm, still a lot of details we don't have here. Tell me about the latest on what you know and your initial reaction to this news.
Well, details are scarce, right? Obviously, we found out from Mecklenburg County Sheriff Gary McFadden that ICE is on the way, that they will be in our community as early as tomorrow, Saturday, as late as maybe Monday. What they're doing, where they're going, why they're coming, we don't know. They have been really hard to nail down. Even from the governor has not heard from them, and certainly the mayor and the city council members have not heard. CMPD really has not heard what they're why they're coming and being responsive to what's happening here on the ground. And so my goal and objective is to communicate to the public, from my perspective, to remain calm, to follow the law, for sure. We don't want to create a disturbance in our community, that everyone in Charlotte who are residents, friends, neighbors who work in our community have respect and due rights, due process. And so, it's just the unknown.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so many unknowns as a piece of this right now. You mentioned CMPD not having much information. The only real confirmation we got initially was from Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office, who also in their press release acknowledged we don't have much information here. But neither of those agencies will be participating in this operation.
Yeah, absolutely not. CMPD will not, the Sheriff Department will not be involved in any type of immigration enforcement. That's not their responsibility at all, nor can we prevent them from doing it. These are national in scope, and so there's nothing we can do to prevent it. Certainly on the ground, CMPD will not be involved in it at all, and I encourage individuals if they see something, say something, call 911. We still have a responsibility for public safety in general as well. Everyone has rights, and we've got a number of nonprofit organizations that are committed to protecting those rights. The Carolina Migrant Network, International House, the Latin American Coalition, Legal Aid of North Carolina all support organizations and services that are here to help people through this process. We don't know what that process is going to look like, but if history is any indication, based on what occurred in Washington, D.C. or New York or most recently Chicago, then I think people are rightly concerned.
Yeah. What are some of the things that you're hearing from constituents, from people in the community that are concerned? What are some of those fears that you're hearing?
Well, that they will come and have the same type of heavy-handed tactics that they saw in the news coming out of Chicago, where, people are just literally being rounded up. People are being pulled off the street. Helicopters are over the sky, and people are coming down from ropes into apartment complexes and tying children together. That's really inhumane. If someone has broken the law, if someone is in our country illegally and there's arrest warrants for them to be apprehended, there's a way to do it without the political theater that goes along with it. And we just hope that everyone in our community, and we love our immigrant community, our neighbors, our friends. I was at a press conference this morning with Councilmember-elect JD from District 5, who spoke very eloquently about about his experience, his lived experience, and a portion of the community now he will represent moving forward. And so everyone is just trying to ensure the community that Charlotte, our diversity is our greatest strength, is who we are, that we are continuing to fight crime and public safety in our community, and we're making giant steps along the way. You know, obviously we would like to be crime free, right? I don't think that's realistic, but we want to make sure that we put processes and procedures in place to protect our citizens, and we're continuing to do that, and people just want to believe that they're safe in our community.
I got a chance yesterday to speak with one of the resource groups in Chicago that has seen on the ground what Border Patrol and ICE being on the ground looks like. And the executive director of that organization said one of the concerns that we've had is kind of a secondary impact of what happens to these immigrant-run businesses. People are scared to go there. That is also a big part of our community in Charlotte, is the business aspect. And a lot of these immigrants run fantastic businesses that need to continue operating. Is that a concern as well?
Very much a concern, and JD spoke about that earlier today as well, in terms of making sure that we continue to support those businesses along the way. I had lunch with him 2 weeks ago. He took me to a fantastic restaurant in East Charlotte, and I want to make a point to go over there today and get some beans and rice, right, to demonstrate support. Children are going to school, and we want to make sure that our schools are a safe zone for our immigrant children and those who attend Charlotte Mecklenburg school system. We want to make sure those who their house of worship is safe and secure, and more importantly, their homes. And so people should know their rights, and that's why, again, I really want to reiterate some of the help organizations that along the way. So if people really need to talk to someone and understand what their rights are, I mean, again, the Latin American Coalition, the Legal Aid of North Carolina, International House, the Carolina Migrant Network, and I'll leave the names and the phone numbers with you, so if anyone wants to call the station and get them, they can have them. But I think it's really important that people know their rights, and that, again, that this city council member, I only can speak for myself, that every citizen in our community should be treated with respect and dignity, and no matter their circumstances.
I am curious too. I know that part of this dynamic is you can't, obviously, I mean, CMPD, Sheriff's Office cannot interfere, participate in this at all. I know leaders even at the state level are having a hard time getting more information. The governor even not being able to get more information or even get in contact with the White House, it sounds like. What are the conversations like in City Council about what happens now? What are you guys talking about doing next in response to this?
Well, it's a waiting game, right? I think the city manager and the mayor and the CMPD have all done what they can do thus far. They reach out to a wide variety of stakeholders that may be impacted about what may occur. Again, we don't know what's going to occur. It's kind of planning for the unknown. And so it's just, at this point, from my perspective, it's just wait and see, right? Obviously, the foundation for support has already been laid out. Again, the press conference today with a wide variety of individuals representing state government, local government, nonprofit organizations, Latino organizations, immigrant organizations have all gathered together to show support. We are stronger together, and so there's a unity of purpose and demonstrating that we want our community to be policed in a way that is safe and secure for everyone. And obviously, we believe that if individuals break the law, they should be arrested for sure. But everyone has due process. Everyone has and we should. That's what this country was born on, and that's what people fought for, and that's what people have died for. And so we want those rights to be upheld. And I think that there's a lot of determination collectively to demonstrate that will be the case.
And I guess my last question is one that I've asked quite a few people that we've interviewed about this so far is, why do you think Charlotte is next on the list? Obviously, it's a blue city, but I mean, most cities lean to the left. So why, if you have any thoughts on...
Well, there's a lot of things happening here in Charlotte, North Carolina. There's a very contentious U.S. Senate campaign that's already started. North Carolina is going to be a competitive state in the 2026 election. I think part of this is based in racism, discrimination, and hatred of black and brown folks. I think when you look at who this administration is targeting, it's black and brown communities that are led by black and brown elected officials. And I think that has something to do with it as well. And it's a scare tactic, right? Trying to scare people into submission. We will not be afraid. We will not walk away from protecting dignity and human rights and the rule of law, and ensuring that every citizen is guaranteed due process. We're going to educate and inform all our citizens about their rights and how to protect their rights. There are resource organizations out there willing to lean in and provide that type of support. And so I think, they've chose Charlotte and North Carolina, but I think they're going to find out that we're all in this together. We're all as one. We don't want any disturbance in our community at all, but we're going to uphold the rule of law and provide dignity and respect to people notwithstanding their circumstances. And if there are bad folks in our community who they have a warrant for and that needs to be apprehended, then they should do their job, but they should do it in a way that is professional and that upholds the rule of law.
Yeah, really seems like the theme here is, band together and, know your rights. Anything else that you think people need to know that I haven't asked about?
I think we're good. I think it's wait and see, right, and support our immigrant communities and their businesses, their churches, their kids as they go to school. If you see something, say something. Let's not make national news for all the wrong reasons, right? Let's demonstrate to the nation who we are as a community. And that our diversity, again, is our greatest strength.
All right.
And you can catch that full interview right now on our digital platforms. Again, it's still a lot of questions, some key questions that remain unanswered, including how many agents will be involved, what their mission entails, and how long this operation will exactly last. We've been reporting on this since the news broke late this week, and we will continue to follow up on this story and continue to give you answers as they come in, provide you with the latest update. That's why it's important to stick with us here on WCNC Plus, WCNC Charlotte. We will, again, continue to follow this story very, very closely in the coming days and possibly weeks if it takes. All right. Thank you for watching us here on Live Impact News. See you at 11 o'clock. Live Impact News. See you Monday.